Welcome to Bloom Today. We have a real visionary show for you. We're going to be talking about walking by faith, not by sight.
Hi, I'm Paula Wallace, president of Bloom in the Dark, and this is
Ginny Priz, the single-handed serenity coach. Welcome to Bloom Today, where we talk about internal and external brokenness and how you can heal,
so that you can use the fertilizer of your past to bloom today. Hey everybody, so today we're talking about walking by faith and not by sight. But the funny thing is, all I can think about is showering by faith and not by sight.
Maybe you'd like to explain that one to us, Paula.
Yeah, well, we do talk about strange things in this kitchen, don't we?
We do.
Yeah, I had just colored my hair because my hair is mostly gray and white after being blonde, right? So I color it black for fun. And I had all this black hair color in my hair, and it was getting to that processed, I've got to wash it out now stage. So I jump into the shower, gloves on my hands, otherwise my hands turn black, and everything's closed. The bathroom has no windows or anything in it, and the water's on. I have water, and I'm starting to get shampoo in this black inky mess, and the power goes out. And I am in not just sort of dark, it is pitch black.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I happen to know for a fact that I have black running down me from head to toe. I don't know for sure where anything is. I am needing to wash all this black hair color out in the dark, and before I can get out and not get black all over the floor trying to find a door to open it to get any light
I mean,
in.
that stuff stains.
It stains horribly.
Oh, everywhere, yeah.
And it stains my skin if I don't wash it off, in addition to my hair in this mess. And I was just going, the scripture that kept coming to mind the whole time was walking by faith and not by sight. And I'm sitting here going, God, help me shower and get all this black hair color off so that I don't look like some kind of made up zombie or Halloween costume.
Help me be literally washed clean, not just by the blood of Christ.
The shampoo and the water, God, please. And it takes a while. It's a process, multiple shampoos and conditioning, doing all this stuff. And then finally I can get dry enough to get to the door and open it and have just a little bit of light coming in. So the power did not turn back on until like a couple hours later. So,
oh my gosh.
So that was my very dramatic personal experience with the idea of not being able to see and having to trust other senses, praying and begging God to help me in that instance, and just put a different face on the truth of walking by faith and not by sight.
Yeah, there was walking by faith and not by sight. Oh my gosh, that's so funny, showering by faith. You're cracking me up over here. There is just the concept of walking by faith and not by sight to me was always a little bit like the Matrix. Shall I say, where there are superhuman things that God can kind of do and work through, and there's things that are happening in the spirit realm around me that I can't necessarily see, and there's the faith, and you know the comment in the movie of The Matrix is there is no spoon. It's like, you know what, that sometimes
this reality,
how I want to see things, where it's, you know what, this doesn't. I think that this thing in front of me matters so much, but in the long run, I know that God can take care of it. He can get that out of my way. He can bend the spoon for me. He can move the mountain. He can do whatever needs to happen. But my eyes are not necessarily seeing reality. And it's not, in your case, it was not seeing anything, but in my case, it more felt like I just don't know what's coming next, but I'm trusting that God is going to take care of it. Which oddly enough reminds me of a fortune cookie that I got one time. I don't know why. There is always a path over the mountain, though it is not visible in the valley.
Well, that is so true. And without the valleys, there are no mountains. Because it's just a plateau or a plain at that point.
Right.
Just another reminder to me when the valley seems really dark and
Yes, and with God, I've always had to say, okay, one step at a time, one baby step at a time, it feels like, and how do you get up the mountain and take that path? The only way I'm going to discover that path, I can't see it from the valley, is I have to take that step of faith and step out and step out. And that was really during, for me, the time when I was moving from New Jersey to Tennessee and taking that big leap of faith and saying, okay, I will move 850 miles away from all of my friends and family, God, because
For fun.
for fun. Because you're telling me to, and you're telling me that this is what you want for me, and that there's a blessing coming out of this. And obviously there was, but it was terrifying at the time. And that was something that helped me, is that I know by faith that this is a good move. But there was no way for me to visibly see that this was going to benefit me in any way, shape, or form.
But just think, you wouldn't be sitting here in the kitchen with me if you had not moved to Tennessee. Well, and then I had to move to Tennessee with 3 kids, with no family and no friends in the state, because God told me to. Mm-hmm. Or I wouldn't be here.
Right.
Either. There's so many places where obedience is what you do, and then sometimes God doesn't show you why or what.
Until way after.
Till he shows you. Which, there's times we wish it were a lot sooner. But it's awesome in that anyone can walk by faith and not by sight, especially if they have 3 truths we're going to talk about today that are realities that are different than maybe what we see or touch in the normal everyday reality.
Everyday physical reality.
Yes.
So, number 1, recognizing that our eyes are limited.
Right.
If we don't recognize that we can only see what we can see, and physically, and there's all kinds of other wavelengths, light wavelengths that we can't see. So we know for a fact that our eyes are not, we can't see. Right, our eyes are not the end all and be all of what can be observed. And that helps me to understand how, if God can see all of these other wavelengths and things that are here, then there surely is, even beyond that, the idea of the spirit realm and angels and God. Unfortunately, demons and everything that's going on here is working together, and God is here with me, even though I don't necessarily see him with my eyes.
Which is so true, and that's why the scripture actually really does say in Corinthians 5:7 to walk by faith and not by sight, because there's so much. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. That whole concept is the difference between how we gauge things in the tangible world we see versus the spiritual world we don't see, that is more real than the world we do see, because that has eternal ramifications.
Again, we're getting to the Matrix. That's more real. The other world is more real. What we see is not real.
But God wants us to actually recognize his eternal best for us, and that he's trustworthy in what he's chosen based on his eternal best, which sometimes doesn't look or feel very good in the temporal, present, tangible world. And I've learned that through so many of the hard things in my life that actually have had miraculous results and outcomes because of the eternal best God was bringing out of it to change my life, to heal, to bring others healing, when the process was a nightmare.
Oh, yeah. That's probably the understatement of the year right there.
What?
The process is horrifying sometimes, or it can feel that way. But he brings us through because he wants our eternal best.
He does. And if we do that with 2 Corinthians 4:18, it says, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is actually eternal. And that's where there's the bigger value. And you actually don't need eyeballs to see the eternal when God shows it to you, because that's your spirit, that's your soul, that's your heart recognizing things that most of the time our eyes can't see, no matter how well they work. And he is working for us and with us in all of these things. He is trustworthy, and we can trust that, oh my goodness, that what is physically around us is not the be-all and end-all, that there is more. And when we know he's this like timeless being, oh my gosh, how does that work, right? Here we are back in sci-fi, but this timeless being, we can trust that he knows where all the pieces are going to fit, and he is working in those things for our good. Right, but sometimes he seems to tell us to do something and we can't see how to do it. We can't see the outcome to do it.
Right.
We don't know where the provision's going to be. We don't know where the tools are going to be. We feel like he's telling us to move to Tennessee when we don't know how any of it's going to work.
Right. Why don't you just step out here into empty black space and don't worry, I'll catch you.
Or walk on water, step out of the
Yeah.
boat.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody else sinks, but why don't you step out there anyway and trust me to make the water solid today so you can walk on it. That type of thing. But he says to obey anyway, and that's where the faith comes in, is that we have to obey. And you keep reminding me of when the Israelites wanted to cross into the promised land.
Yes. This was huge. And it was huge for my move to Tennessee, but it's continued to be a huge principle in my faith walk, is that they needed to step out into the Jordan River. And once all of the men who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant were in the water. So the guys up front were probably like really wet trying to, wade through this. And while the guys in the back are just possibly, just stepping in. But it took them putting the God that they worshiped out into the most vulnerable place, putting themselves in the most vulnerable place and stepping out into faith before the water would recede and be pushed back. So the idea of step out in faith and then something happens. It's not, everything looks nice, so now I'm going to step out. It's the exact opposite of that.
So they actually walked out on dry ground when it came down to the rest of the people.
The rest of it, right.
Because there was that obedience to start with.
Absolutely.
So
we have a guest today, a fly on my hand.
We do.
Awesome. This is really interesting.
Yeah, it's a kitchen, and we don't have a fly
never
trap,
know.
evidently.
Maybe we should take out the garbage.
That is so funny, considering our green screen kitchen. But we are thrilled that we get a chance to balance out again the spiritual and the temporal, the fun of sharing truth with what we see versus what's actually valuable. And there's so many times there's flies and other things that are distracting and irritating and trying to get in our way,
Right.
that will keep us from that eternal viewpoint or that value.
Yeah. But it's not going to get in the way today.
Nope.
If you want to learn more about the lesson that we were talking about, how you can walk by faith and not just by sight, you can go to our website, bloomtodaytv.com, and download the coaching tool. There's some questions, a couple-page worksheet there where you can help apply this to your life, and then some exercises to get you stepping out, baby steps in the right direction.
And we have a really, really cool guest for this topic.
Yes,
I'm
my
so
goodness.
excited that this is somebody I've been watching because she's so beautiful and sings beautifully, and her name is Ginny, so I actually can remember it.
Dove Award-winning Christian music artist, Ginny Owens. Would you please join us in the kitchen,
Yay,
Ginny?
so excited. And Ginny, can you give Ginny a hand?
You know what? I think I could. Hello, Ginny. Welcome to the
Hello,
kitchen.
welcome.
Here's your hand, dear.
Aw, thanks.
Just for
I
you.
wonder if the hand and the stick would work
Would work together.
That's kind of creepy. Oh, weird.
We come with accessories with
I
Ginny's,
know,
right?
that's right. All the Jennies have accessories.
And now y'all are making this a Ginny sandwich, and I get to sit between.
know. There's Ginny and Paula.
And Paula. I'm just Paula, y'all, in between the Ginnies.
Well, Paula is a lovely name.
But it's not Ginny.
Oh,
It's
well.
okay.
It's
all
okay.
right.
You're individual.
That's right.
I'm special.
Usually we're the oddballs with our names, so hey. you know.
Which is why having y'all both here, where you have, these visible handicaps, special things. People like remember the girl with one arm, and I'm the girl with the girl with one arm.
How
That has
funny.
the show with the girl with one arm. It's pretty funny when they don't recognize me, but when I tell them about Jane, oh yeah, I know her. Oh, you're the girl with her.
funny.
Okay.
Hilarious.
It's not by choice, so what can I say?
No,
and
it's
Ginny,
not.
yours was obviously not by choice either.
Right.
Your handicap. So you were You were blind at 3, is that
Right,
right?
correct. Had limited vision due to a hereditary condition passed down from my dad's side of the family. So I lost my sight at the age of 3. Yeah.
Do you have any memories before that?
I don't. I don't. I can sometimes dream. I can sometimes see when I dream, but then when I wake up, I can't remember what it was like to see. So
Interesting.
yeah, it's kind of crazy. But when I was 3, I had a surgery that they were hoping would restore my sight, and actually ended up taking the sight that I had left away. And so
Oh, wow.
after that, though, my mom says that I, sort of spent 6 weeks down, and then just, it was like I woke up one day and everything was fine, and it was like I never missed it at all. So life's pretty much been that way ever since.
Well, and you do such a beautiful job of living all out and not
thanks.
letting that seem to stop you. Like everything I see, everything I know about you is just living all out, which, I mean, I know it's a process, and today you're going to share with us some of that process that it's taken from when you started out at 3 and did lose your sight. But what was the first thing you do remember?
The first thing I do remember, wow. I remember playing with the neighbor kids really well. And I was quite a tomboy, so I loved to climb trees and ride my bike all over the neighborhood and roller skate and scare the neighbors half to death. I'm sure. So, yeah, that's really what I remember. And then I remember going to school and realizing pretty quickly that there was something wrong, that I was different, and therefore, other kids were awkward around me, that I didn't belong. And
So you didn't go to a school for the blind specifically?
Well, I eventually did half day at the School for the Blind.
Okay.
And then I would do my other classes at the public school. So, yeah, I ended up, really having a lot of fun in school eventually, but as an elementary student, not so much. And just, because at that point, kids are looking for someone to pick on. They need to have an object of to sort of harass, and so I got the brunt of that a lot.
I'm sure you did, and that's sad, but it is a normal thing when there's anything different about somebody.
Right.
But people who got to know you obviously got past that.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah, I think so. I made a lot of friends, and I think just, well, for me, it just meant that I had to keep showing up, keep trying, keep trying to connect with people. And, my friends that became good friends stayed good friends. So that was a very, sweet thing to learn, is that, even in hard times, many great friendships can be made. So.
Which is amazing.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
And were you a Christian all growing up?
So I was pretty much. My grandfather was a pastor. My dad, in my early life, was a pastor, and so we were in church every time the door opened, I think. And so yeah, I became a Christian at 4. And of course, as a 4-year-old, you don't know a whole lot about faith, but
Right.
I loved singing to Jesus and about Jesus, and I believed he was in my heart. And so that was a very, a faith that ultimately would be tested and tried in all kinds of ways, but it was a very sweet way to begin my faith journey.
And did you always love music then?
I did. I always loved music. My family always tells stories of me, embarrassing stories that I would never repeat now, but stories of me as like a 2-year-old, standing up on the front church pew and telling the choir they were not singing Handel's Messiah correctly, and explaining to them how they should be singing it.
That is phenomenal.
Yes. So now I'm too shy to do that, but apparently that was my initial life. So I loved music. We had an old church piano with a few keys missing that was really out of tune, that the church was going to give away to someone, but my parents said that they would take it. So it ended up in our dining room for all my growing up years, and I learned to play and write songs on that. So yeah, always loved music. Always been very moved by it, and I've always loved the connection that it makes, with other people and with hearts. You know, we all, you know, we can sing a lot of things that we can't say. You know, we can sing a lot of truth that we can all relate to that doesn't go as well when we say it. So
That's totally true.
I agree. I agree. Yes, and there's just something about a melody that forgives many things.
right, it's very true.
And portrays many things. You know, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think a song must be worth at least 10 times that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do you feel like your biggest struggle was in coming to the level of faith and in ministry that you do through music? And I know it wasn't a straightforward, just instant, perfect
Journey
for you.
No, you know, I feel like growing in faith is a daily struggle, right? I mean, it's something you don't ever, well, at least I don't ever feel like I got this, you know, I've got this under control, I understand it. I think at first it was, you know, when I first graduated from college, I really thought I was going to be a high school music teacher. That was kind of my goal for several reasons. I had gone to Belmont University in Nashville, so I didn't think there was ever any possible way that I would make a living doing music, because everyone did music.
Doing music.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was that, but then also I really I didn't like the stereotype that a lot of people have that blind people have to do music. So I thought, if I teach, then at least I'll be a legit human being. And so that was really, really the plan. And I always say I'm probably the only person who lived in Nashville and wanted to get a teaching job that actually ended up with a writing deal, a songwriting deal instead. So yeah, but the first few years of that were really hard, just being on the road all the time and you know, feeling like I was such an introvert, and so learning how to engage with people, that took a lot of faith to just jump into that, but then also to not let that rule my heart or become my God was really, really hard. To just trust that God would take care of me, and that He was best if placed in the center of my life, as opposed to my music career taking that center God space. And so, you know, I feel like those are the things that I always wrestle with, you know, just learning to surrender and learning to trust God and allow Him to be center of my life. Those are continual struggles, you know.
Yeah. So you actually have to, I mean, you walk by faith, not by sight physically, but then spiritually you still have to learn how to do that and navigate that as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not off the hook on that one.
Yeah, it's like
sure.
multi-levels
you're just normal,
of this.
Right.
When it comes to the fact that none of us do that automatically or easily.
No, we are so prone not to, you know, we really are.
Right, and when you've had the bullying and you've had the negativity and people finding ways to get out of their own hurt or their own damage, and
Right.
they do harm instead of that, I think it takes a different level of surrender.
Yes.
Because surrender doesn't feel safe. Being vulnerable doesn't feel safe.
Absolutely.
Being yourself doesn't feel safe in a lot of
Right.
cases. And you've gotten to process all of those same things that many of us experience for other reasons, but you've gotten to process that in a different way,
Right.
where God's path for you has had such a beautiful effect on so many people with your music.
Amen to that.
And the stereotype, I'd never thought of it that way, but the 3 adults that I knew growing up who couldn't see, they were all into music.
Yeah.
Had gone to, one had gone to Juilliard, and actually, no, 2 of them went to Juilliard. And
Wow.
another one, like,
you know,
to music.
impressive people.
No, they were just in a little community I grew up in, but it was...
They don't have the music career that you have.
No, they don't. And one of them sang at my wedding. She had the most beautiful voice, was not a musician. She just had this gorgeous voice. And it so touched my heart, and I felt connected. I think because I had all this internal brokenness that just felt connected to somebody that had a brokenness I could see, that I could relate to, which is just funny. That was a comfort and a love to me. And so
So you have a new album coming out. or that has come out.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that.
And a book?
And a book. I know we have so many.
Oh my
So
gosh.
many things. Yeah. So I have an album out called "Love Be the Loudest." That is just all about the truth that our lives change and how our lives change when God's voice becomes the loudest. When His voice of love, His voice of truth, is what is compelling us and driving us every day. So. And then the book is sort of it's actually the same theme. As I started to talk about the album, once it was released, I realized, man, this needs like a companion piece to go along with it.
Right.
So it's essentially a 14-day devotional. It's called Love Be the Loudest, Hearing God's Voice Above the Noise. And it's,
Wow.
yeah, just basically the same idea of how does God's love actually change our lives if we allow it to speak to our hearts and through us, and it's, I think that most of us have sort of a skewed view of God in some way. Either He's the taskmaster, in the sky, or He's the Santa Claus in the sky, or He's
both
sort
wrong.
of, or He's like that guy out there in the sky that might give us what we want sometimes and might not other times.
Yeah.
Arbitrary.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's a verse, Psalm 25:14, that talks about how the secrets of the Lord, the friendship of the Lord is reserved for those who love Him, who fear Him. And to those of us that do, He gives us His secrets. He tells us His secrets. So when you think about God as a dear friend who longs to whisper His secrets to us, it really changes your perspective on, who you are, but also who He is and how He speaks into our lives. And so I feel like with all the noise, it's so hard to find space and time for God, but it's also so hard to understand the noise if we don't find space and time for Him,
Yes.
That's for sure.
So it's both the
I
book
agree
and the
with that.
album are all about that. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that idea that God is as a friend, and if we are listening to His voice the same way that we might listen to someone's voice on the phone, or that you get to listen to our voices every day, you get to know them better and come closer with them as you continue to listen and build this relationship.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, we were created in His image, and He wants friendship too, just the way we want it, and relationship as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And
I
that
love
so changes the perspective on everything else.
Yes.
Which,
it does.
again, perspective has nothing to do with eyesight.
No, it doesn't. And the thing is, it does strengthen our faith. The more that we spend time with God, I mean, it's just like you're saying with any other friend. The more you get to know your friend, the more you know what your friend's desires are, the more you have a way of relating to that friend and you know what's important to them. And it's the same with our relationship with God. The more that we know Him, the stronger our faith is, the more we're not afraid of those baby steps, or we're always going to be a little bit afraid, but if we are so confident in our relationship with God, then we don't have to be afraid. But the only way to be confident is go and find Him and go and wait for His whisper,
And spend time.
Right,
Amen.
absolutely.
Ginny, that is why you are our ex-victim of the week. And we have a gift here for you, which is
You actually get a coffee mug to take home, and it has tissues and chocolates.
Oh my goodness, yum.
And these great things, because we're emotional, so we like to have fun with that. And we are saying is that we use the fertilizer of our past so that we can bloom
today.
A free PDF copy of the Bloom in the Dark book and a full list of Bloom Today's coaching tools can be found on bloomtodaytv.com. Then visit Bloom Today's Facebook group for deeper conversation.